Hello and welcome to Iron Africa here on France 24. I'm Fraser Jackson. Here are the stories making headlines across the continent this evening. At least 12 people have been killed by an oil pipeline explosion in Nigeria. The blast took place in the oil-rich Rivers region. We'll have the latest from our correspondent in the country. Emmanuel Macron touches down in Congo, having spent the previous days in Angola. The French president is continuing his efforts to reset his country's relations with the African continent. And we'll take you to a francophone book fair in Rwanda, something of a rarity in the country, seen as only around 10% of the population speak French. It's good to have you with us this evening. Our top story: at least 12 people have been killed in Nigeria after an explosion at a pipeline. The blast took place in the oil-rich Rivers region at a pipeline operated by oil company Shell. Local residents said they feared many more had died in the blast. Well, let's cross live to Nigeria to get more from our correspondent in Lagos, Sam Olukoya. Sam, thank you so much for joining us this evening. What do we know so far, Sam?
What we know so far is that apparently, presumably some people were stealing crude oil from a major pipeline in the Niger Delta region, and they loaded this stolen fuel in vehicles, and in the process of moving this petrol from the site, one of the vehicles caused a spark, and this led to explosion. All the vehicles loaded with the stolen crude exploded, and this explosion spread to the pipeline where they had stolen this crude for, and we had a very major incident, a very, very major fire. It's not surprising that there's a major fire because the pipeline from which this crude oil was stolen from is a major pipeline. It's known as the Trans-Niger Delta pipeline, one of the largest oil pipelines in the Niger Delta. So it's not surprising that this huge fire occurred. We know that it's been confirmed by the police that 12 people died, but local communities say the death toll could be more than 12.
Sam, you say it's not a surprise. This isn't the first time something like this has happened in Nigeria, is it? What's the government doing to crack down on oil theft and pipeline sabotage?
Well, actually, this is not the first time. We've seen a repeat of this over and over and over. What normally happens is that communities or oil thieves will break open oil pipelines and they will steal the product. They normally take it to illegal refineries where this crude is refined, and normally you have fire incidents either in the process of stealing this crude or while it is being refined. The refining process is very crude. They are using naked fire to refine the petrol, which, as you know, is highly inflammable. So that is when we normally have this fire. One of the worst incidents happened way back in 1998 in Jesse, where we have more than 1,000 people were killed as a result of that incident. But what the government is doing, the government has set up numerous bodies to address this issue. But because there's a lot of money to be made from this thing, these bodies are not effective. Sometimes those security agents who are known, who are charged with the responsibility of fighting this crime, they are said to compromise sometimes, and they sometimes themselves get involved in this thing. And that's why, rather than decline, the trend has been on over a very long time. We're talking of an industry worth several $1 million a year. So it's quite a big crime that it's extremely difficult for the government to crack down. There's unemployment in the Niger Delta region and where this oil comes from. So this is like a lucrative avenue for people to make money.
Sam Olukoya, France 24's correspondent in Nigeria. Thank you so much for that update. Emmanuel Macron is continuing his whistle-stop tour of Africa, having touched down in the Congolese capital Brazzaville on Friday afternoon. Macron made the short hop from Angola, a country which he declared a strategic partner in the region. Chairing an economic forum in the Angolan capital, the French president said that the heart of his visit was to strengthen agricultural partnerships with Angola. It comes as he aims to reset France's fraying ties with the continent at large. Well, after a short stint in Brazzaville, Macron will head across the river early on Saturday, headed for the capital of DR Congo, Kinshasa. But he's not sure of a warm welcome. Many Congolese there have grown weary of France's presence on the continent, with much of it centred around France's warming relations with neighbouring Rwanda, a country DR Congo accuses of supporting M23 rebels in the east of the country. Our team on the ground have this report.
In Kinshasa, plans for French President Emmanuel Macron's first visit to the country have been met with bewilderment. His official program focuses on culture, sports, education, but for people of Kinshasa, Macron cannot sidestep addressing one of DR Congo's most pressing security crises. M23 rebels, who the UN says are supported by Rwanda, continue to advance and seize territory in the east.
France sanctioning Rwanda would be perceived as a strong and positive action by Congolese people. It would confirm that France indeed is on our side and does not support those who offend us.
Cartoonist Cash feels similarly. His sketch of Emmanuel Macron satirizes the French president's relationship with Kigali.
That door, it is the DRC. And as he hesitates to come in because his feet are dripping with blood, this little man tells him, "Come on in, don't you worry. We know you sleep in Kigali." Obviously to mark the closeness between France and the Kagame regime.
A recent survey has suggested that many Congolese have grown more wary of France's interests in the region. Researchers questioned 3,000 people, and many said they see less benefit in working closely with France than with China and Russia.
Je pense qu'il y a une déception à l'égard de la France qui tient au fait que dans les
People are disappointed due to the fact that during the previous crisis in the Great Lakes, where the DRC was also confronted to M23 and Rwanda, France was very clearly on the side of the DRC. So this change generates resentment.
Il y a ce changement-là qui a été bien perçu par les Congolais qui suscite une certaine rancœur.
The Democratic Republic of Congo is the largest French-speaking country in the world. Small protests have already been held in the former Belgian colony against Emmanuel Macron's expected arrival there on Saturday.
Despite several attempts by the government to reduce plastic pollution in Niger's capital, the city is still inundated. The level of plastic waste on the streets and in its waterways has led to an increasing number of animal deaths after they ingest plastic bags. Our correspondent Arol Girard sent us this report.
This cow is eating plastic rubbish. In Niamey, over 29% of livestock die every year from eating similar waste. Abdulaziz Silla has lost several of his animals in this way.
You always notice the bloated stomach when she eats. That's how you know she's ingested plastic bags. And when that's the case, she doesn't really gain any weight anymore.
Niamey produces about 16,000 tons of plastic waste a year, and the city's waste management team is often overwhelmed. The organization JVE campaigns for the protection of the environment.
We are young and we have the right to help our country. We raise awareness among our peers about plastic and other wastes. We mustn't pollute the land, air or water because plastic waste threatens our environment.
In Niger, the paramilitary Water and Forests Division is leading the charge against pollution. Plastic waste is a threat to the sustainability of animal husbandry, which is a crucial part of Niger's economy. For every kilo of plastic ingested by animals, farmers lose out on over a kilo of meat that could have been sold.
On se retrouve avec une perte donc au niveau de l'abattoir frigorifique.
In the main slaughterhouse, we have lost over €7.5 million over the past 5 years.
5 milliards de francs CFA donc en termes de perte économique.
Despite producing only 7% of the world's plastics, the African continent is the hardest hit by the spread of plastic waste.
For the second time, Rwanda is currently hosting the International Francophone Book Fair. It's an opportunity for the scores of visitors to meet and speak with famous authors from Europe and Africa, something of a rare event in a country where barely 10% of the population speaks French and where the language is used only by the elite. Clément Diroma has this report.
Fanta Dramé published her first novel during the literary season in France last September. This French teacher is traveling to Rwanda for the first time to meet other authors and especially female writers.
The festival gives pride of place to female authors. Before, the spotlight was mainly on male authors, but now there are many female authors who are younger and who bring a different perspective to this kind of career and even to this literature. I think that the theme of exile, of travel, of departure is very important in these encounters.
For 4 days, Kigali welcomes African and European writers. At the heart of this book fair, the history of the continent and that, still very painful, of Rwanda.
Je crois que je ne sais plus parler. Je sais écrire ce que j'aurais dû dire. Et je pense que tout le monde est capable.
Yolande Mukagasana is a survivor of the 1994 Tutsi genocide and now encourages the younger generation to speak out.
Today, many Rwandans are writing their story, and I support that. No one can tell my story better than myself.
Recently, the warming of diplomatic ties between Paris and Kigali has favored cultural exchanges and encouraged the learning of French. Yet less than 10% of Rwandans speak this language, according to several studies. That's why the book fair has chosen to highlight books written in French.
Bringing authors coming from Djibouti, Algeria, Guinea or France here allows Rwandans to reactivate the storytelling space. And they say to themselves, we like this event. Can we organize meetings more often?
The public will also get to meet Senegal's Mohamed Bougarsar, the first writer from sub-Saharan Africa to win the prestigious Goncourt Award.
Well, that's it for now. Stay tuned to France 24. More news coming up next.